What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you.
Well, hello again, everybody, and boy, what a rainy, dreary fiasco that was in Philadelphia, where the Bills wasted just a tremendous effort by Josh Allen, all for nothing because, again, and this is a disturbing pattern, they get a late lead and the defense can't hold it. And I know the defense has injuries, and we've talked about that, but this team is too good to be 6-6, in my opinion. Is it all, do you look at the coach, is it all McDermott's fault? Some of it certainly, but is it fair to put it all on him? Well, I'm starting to question that for sure. So the Bills lose it in overtime, a game they should have won at Philadelphia. The Eagles, a team that came within really one Jalen Hurts turnover of winning a Super Bowl a year ago, they're 9-1 going in. They're 10-1 now as they win at 37-34 in overtime. But it was a game that shouldn't have gotten that far the way the Bills started this game in Philadelphia. They really had a nice plan. They were ready to go. Everybody was doing what they had to do. And McDermott, I think, did have a good plan, certainly in the first half. Hurts wound up with only 33 yards passing the entire first half. The Bills were getting a lot of pressure on him. He was not able to really scramble that much as he did later. But to the Eagles' credit, they made some adjustments. And in the second half, the Bills' defense just could not get a stop. Normally, I don't like to talk about penalties that much, but at this game, the officiating was atrocious. The Bills had 10 penalties in the first half alone. They wound up with 11 for 80 yards. But the penalties in the first half, some of them were self-inflicted. They had some false starts. They had some holding calls. And defensive penalties were huge in the only touchdown drive the Eagles had in the first half. 3 times the Bills extended a drive that wound up being in the end zone. So instead of maybe a 17-0 or 20-0 halftime lead, it was 17-7. The Bills looked to be in control of this one, but hey, it's the Eagles. They're really, really a good team. So what a tremendous effort from Josh Allen, wasted. I mean, one of the best performances I thought of his career when you consider the magnitude of this game, the setting at Philadelphia, a national game. Obviously, the weather conditions were terrible, rainy, windy, and everything was on his shoulders, and he was unbelievable. He had 420 total yards. His legs are back, and he's using them. 2 touchdowns rushing, both on great runs that really make the Bills tough to defend inside the red zone. Allen took it in twice. He also had 2 touchdown passes. Had another miscommunication that would have won the game in the overtime as Gabe Davis, somehow they missed connections. Now, maybe it's just me, but if you think one of the two, Gabe Davis or Josh Allen, made a mistake, I think I'm going to go with number 17. And Davis, again, just one of the conundrums the Bills are facing right now. He had 12 targets, had 6 catches. He had over 100 yards, had a touchdown. But he was covered most of the time. He just does not get separation, and for a number 2 receiver, it's hard to count on him. You also had a situation there with Stephon Diggs, who has been one of the most vocal people speaking out against some of the things the Bills are doing, and yet he had 2 very costly drops in this game. He did play fairly well. He had some 6 catches, I think 70-some yards. But before we go any further, I would like to thank my sponsors. Atwell Eye Care, they did cataract surgery on my both eyes a couple of weeks apart several months ago, and the result was just spectacular. I now see like I did when I was 25 years old. Blue Tusk Tech out in Orchard Park. If you have any computer needs for a used computer, a new computer, they have some great deals going on right now. So Blue Tusk Tech They are great people, and they will really be reasonable with whatever you need. And then Global Vending Group, they're a local company in Buffalo, a vending machine company that has established a book vending program for schools all around the globe, actually, to promote child literacy. So a shout out to them as well. Now getting back to the game and some specifics here on Sean McDermott, who, again, I'm not laying everything on him, and I'm not saying the Bills should fire him. Right now, that's the reaction we have. 6-6, probably going to miss the playoffs with a team we thought was a Super Bowl contender. But it's more complicated than that, and there is a risk of overreacting because sometimes you make coaching changes too soon, and then getting back where you were is an issue. So that has to be factored in. But one of the things that really bothered me was late in regulation, the Bills had looked like they were in pretty good shape to maybe win it. The Eagles had come back and gotten in somewhat field goal range, but I mean, Elliott, my God, it was like Jake Elliott, who never misses, but this was from 59 yards, a little bit of a crosswind in the rain and cold, and the Bills still had 2 timeouts left with, now this was with about, well, there were, when he made the field goal, he made a 59-yarder, there were still 20 seconds left, but the Bills, instead of having 2 timeouts, had 1 timeout, and McDermott decided to kneel it out. Now, I understand that coaches are always thinking about the downside, and well, they should. Statistically speaking, and by all the numbers you want to put together, when you try to move the football from your own 20-yard line, or 25, but anywhere in there, the odds of something going wrong are better than the odds of making something good happen. But that is factoring some quarterbacks that don't have Josh Allen's ability. Remember last year at Thanksgiving against the Lions, it was an almost similar situation, except this time the Bills went for it, and on the very first play, Allen fired one over the middle, and Diggs made a great catch. It was a 40-some-yard gain, and that one throw put the Bills in field goal position, and they actually wound up winning the game. So I think it sends a terrible message, and it's wasting the talents of Josh Allen, who is as good as it gets as far as I'm concerned. Again, the Bills' defensive plan early was outstanding. Jalen Hurts was really having a difficult time figuring how to find anybody open. He was scrambling around, but wasn't able to make the big kind of plays that he later was able to make as the game progressed in the second half. It's hard to understand why the Bills could be so good in the first half and so poor, and I'm talking about defensively in the second half, but coaching certainly is a big aspect of that. And let's give the Eagles some credit. They came within 1 turnover from Hurts of winning a Super Bowl a year ago. So they are an outstanding team, and yeah, they're now 10-1. So, it's not like you're going up against a vacuum there. But the officiating, I usually don't like to talk about officiating, but it was horrendous. There were several calls that were just difficult to grasp, including a late miss of a horse collar on Josh Allen that was clearly obvious, and he was outside the pocket. Now, it's in the NFL these days, it's not horse collar tackle if it's in the box, but Allen was clearly outside the box, and what do the Bills get for it? They get an intentional grounding. That was a game changer right there. There were some missed pass interference calls that were horrendous. The Bills, though, also hurt themselves with some penalties in that first half, as the only touchdown drive that the Eagles had was aided 3 times by defensive penalties that kept that drive alive. And so it was, instead of 17 or 20 to nothing, it was 17-7 at the half. And you knew the Eagles were going to come back in this one. There was also, in overtime, a play where A.J. Brown made a catch, took a couple of steps, was hit and fumbled. That should have been the football game right there. There was a very similar play that happened earlier in the day where basically the rule is there are 3 points here that have to be followed. You make the catch, you make a football move, which he did. He made the catch, tucked it. As he was making a step, he took another step. As he was about to make the third step was when he got hit. Now, that should be a fumble. That should be game, set, match right there. But no, it was called an incomplete pass and the drive survived. Maybe one positive aspect here, I'm trying to find one for you, is offensive coordinator Joe Brady is continuing to really get a handle. The Bills had over 500 yards of total offense in this game. Again, Josh Allen, though, had 420 of them, but I thought he used James Cook well. He had over 100 yards total between rushing and pass receiving. I still think Khalil Shakir should be used more often. He's a real weapon, and he's always finding ways to get himself open. He has great football intelligence, and getting open in any situation, whether it's a zone, man-to-man, press, whatever, Shakir not only makes catches, but then he makes plays after the catch. Also, tight end Dalton Kincaid, I'm sure the Eagles were keying on him, but he was still very effective. Tyler Bass missed a couple field goals, had one blocked. Those 6 points, yeah, you can't have that. He's been unreliable in the clutch, and that's not been the case in the last couple of years, but that's another aspect of the Bills roster that has to be looked at. But in this game, 6-6 now, 6-6. That's nowhere near where a team of this talent should be at this point. Now, owner Terry Pagula is an impatient guy. He's got a new stadium being built that's going to be needing customers, suite holders, season ticket holders. The expenses of this thing are going to be enormous. And Pagula is not one to just sit idly by and watch a team of this talent with a franchise quarterback that he's paying handsomely, who's only 27 years old. He's not going to just sit there and watch this happen. So this next little stretch here, the Bills have a bye week. They have 5 games left, including one at Miami to end the season. In a perfect world, that game would mean something. I'd like the Bills' chances if it comes down to that, quite frankly. But you've got, after the bye week, you're at Kansas City. That's not a gimme. I don't think the Chiefs are quite what they were a year ago offensively, but they're better defensively. Then you have the Dallas Cowboys, one of the top teams in the NFL, here a week after that. And, you've got the Patriots in there. You've got a game at the Chargers out on the West Coast. Defensively, they're terrible, but we know that the Bills' defense probably won't be able to stop them either. So can the Bills reel off 5 in a row? Yeah, they can do it. I think it's very unlikely, though. So what are the off-season issues for Brandon Beane, who deserves, he's whiffed on some people. He's got some players to his credit, too. I think the Shakir, he got him in the 5th round. Certainly Kincaid is a late first-round pick, and he's a potential superstar, a potential all-pro player. The problem this year really has mostly been on the defense. Just not good enough, can't hold leads. Yes, they miss Matt Milano terribly. And all of this is true. But you can also see some other little problems here, like the safeties, Hyde and Poyer. Is it just my eyes, or are they slowing down a little bit? They were making several tackles against the Eagles, but a lot of them were down the field, and they just can't cover like they once did. So there's an area of concern. The brutal schedule, of course. You've got the Von Miller. Miller did finally come close to a sack last night. He got his hands on Jalen one time, but wasn't able to hang on. But again, there goes a lot of money for no production. Is he going to get better in time to become a factor in these last 5 games? I guess we'll have to see. But very, very disheartening loss. The Bills deserve better. They've wasted a magnificent performance from Josh Allen. Sean McDermott is on the hot seat. He deserves to be. But to finish the thought here, Pagula and the Bills have to be very, very careful not to overreact. They have to let this season play out before doing anything rash. Remember the Chiefs several years ago, Marty Schottenheimer wasn't getting the team to the Super Bowl, but he was 14-2 and hosting AFC Championship games. He was fired, and the Chiefs then went into a tailspin. No, they didn't have Josh Allen then, certainly. They didn't have a quarterback, but there's a lesson to be learned there, I think, that you can overreact. And you have to give Bean and McDermott credit for establishing a new culture. They've made it a place where free agent players want to come, want to be. All of this is not nothing. It's important, but this team should not be 6-6. That's the bottom line. So we'll just have to